morning, everyone. I hope you had a great weekend and welcome back for our first activity this Monday. So today we're going to be starting with day 17 in our packet, and we're going to start by reading a newspaper article titled World Health Worker Week. Now, for those of you that were able to join us on our Zoom classroom meeting on Thursday, we read a newspaper article about healthcare workers. So this kind of piggybacks and goes along with our newspaper article that we read in our class Zoom meeting on Thursday about healthcare workers. So what we're going to do is I'm going to start by going over a question. Then I'll talk about the materials that we are going to need today to complete our newspaper article with our questions. So the question is going to be, based on those of you that were able to attend our class Zoom meeting on Thursday, so what you know previously when we talked about healthcare workers, can you name a health worker? Can you name a health worker? So I want you to think about that. I want you to think back to our article that we discussed on Thursday, and if you can remember, who is a health worker, okay? And then what we're going to do is, after we read our newspaper article for today, we're going to come back and answer that question. So I want you to think about an answer. You can keep that answer in your mind, or you can jot it down on a piece of paper, so then when we go back and we revisit our question at the end of the newspaper article, we could see if one of your answers was correct. So materials that you are going to need is you're going to gather from your packet the World News article called World Health Worker Week. Okay, and attached to it should be the 3 comprehension questions. And then you're also going to need a pencil and then your correcting tool. So either your crayon, a marker, or a colored pencil. Okay, so the materials that you are going to need is your World Health Worker Week newspaper article. And like I said, attached to them should be the 3 comprehension questions, a pencil so we can write our name and answer our 3 questions, and then the correcting tool so we can correct our answers. So I'd like you to gather all your material. If you need a little bit extra time finding it, you can pause the video and then press play when you have all your materials in front of you. So before we dive into our newspaper article, I just want to go over these 3 key vocabulary words that we're going to hear in this newspaper article. So you can read along, read the vocabulary words with me, or you can repeat back after me. So we have health worker, which goes along with naming and answering our question, can you name a health worker? Honor, and then heroes. You can see that. Honor and heroes. So these 3 vocabulary words we're going to hear in this newspaper article. It's also going to be able to help us answer our question, can you name a health worker? So let's get started. It's a very short article, and like I said, if you were able to join our class Zoom meeting on Thursday, it goes along with our newspaper article that we read on Thursday together. So as I read, I'd like you to follow along with me. So let's first start with the title, World Health Worker Week. Okay. Now this article was published back at the beginning of April, so last month. So it is. We've already passed the Healthcare Worker Week, but this past week we celebrated Nurses Day on, I believe it was Wednesday. So this kind of also goes along with that as well. So let's begin. World Health Worker Week is April 5th through the 11th in 2020. So like I said, it was last month we celebrated World Healthcare Worker Week, but last week it was Nurses Appreciation Day, and I believe it was on Wednesday. So during this week, it honors health workers around the world. Health workers care for many people. Health workers include doctors, nurses, aides, and more. Okay? So they have a week in April that's designated to honor those healthcare workers. So let's turn our page. Health workers are heroes. Okay, so so far we've hit all our 3 vocabulary words. We heard about health workers, who they discussed as doctors, nurses, aides, and many more. We talked about honoring them, so there's a week out in April in which which we honor them during that week. And then we just talked about how healthcare workers are heroes. Let's go back to our article. Many people are sick now because of the coronavirus. Health workers care for them. They help people feel better. Thank you, health workers. Okay, so we know that healthcare workers can work in a hospital setting, and they care for people who are sick, and some might that have the coronavirus, to help them feel better and to get back on track and to get healthy. So now we're going to do like a very short newspaper article. We're going to turn to our 3 review questions. So I'm going to read each question, and what I'd like you to do is please put your first and last name at the top of the review page. And then when you're done with that, we're going to read each question with the answer, and then we'll go over and correct our work. So question number 1. When is World Health Worker Week? April, May, or June? So you're circling your answer. Number 2. Who does World Health Worker Week honor? Honor is one of our vocab words that we talked about. Art teachers, health workers, or construction workers? And then number 3. What do health workers include? Doctors, bakers, or lawyers? So you just want to make sure that you have an answer circled for question 1, an answer circled for question 2, and an answer circled for question 3. If you missed one of the questions, you can rewind the video and go back to the question so you're able to answer it. Now what we're going to do is we're going to correct our work. So now you're going to get out your correcting tool, whether if it's a marker, a crayon, a colored pencil, a pen. And remember, if you got your answer correct, you'll put a check. If you got it incorrect, you're going to circle the correct answer to learn from your mistake. So number 1, when is World Health Worker Week? April, May, or June? And the correct answer is April. So in April, they celebrate a week long that honors those who are health workers. Last week, which is in May, it was Nurses Appreciation Day, and nurses are considered a health worker. So they honored all nurses on that day. Number 2, who does World Health Worker Week honor? Art teachers, health workers, or construction workers? And the correct answer is health workers. Health workers could include doctors, nurses, aides, and many more. Number 3, what do health workers include? Doctors, bakers, or lawyers? And the correct answer is doctors. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go back and we're going to revisit the question. Can you name a health worker? So based on our reading on Thursday and our class reading on Thursday, and just after reading this short newspaper article, so can you name a health worker? So we learned in the article that health workers could include doctors, nurses, aides, and more. And more could include health workers, could also include, it could be firefighters, EMTs. So EMTs are those that work on the ambulance. So when they get called to a scene, or if they needed to transport you to the hospital, the EMTs would do so. So those are also included as healthcare workers. So we're going to stick with those for right now. Doctors, nurses, aides, firefighters, EMTs. And those firefighters and EMTs were also touched upon in our newspaper article in our class Zoom meeting on Thursday. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to go over our 3 vocab words that we heard in the newspaper article. You can repeat back after me or say with me. So we have health workers. So we said health workers could include doctors, nurses, aides, firefighters, EMTs. Honor, and we talked about how there's a week in April where we honor and celebrate all the health workers. And then heroes. And health workers are heroes because they help those who are sick, especially those that might have the coronavirus, to get them healthy and to get them able to go come out of the hospital and go back home. So that is going to be it for our reading today. And after reading, we're going to get ready for math. So I will see you all back in math.